You're listening to Dare to Transform, where we find the vision, dedication, and motivation behind inspiring stories of transformation. This is episode number 4, From Passion to Purpose. I'm your host, Angela Harris, founder of Work of Heart, bringing you a Missing Link Technologies production. My guest today is someone who I absolutely love following on social media for all of her beautiful photos and sometimes unexpected images, Lyndsay Doyle of Lyndsay Doyle Photography. After a decade in the corporate world, Lindsay made the leap to full-time entrepreneurship in 2012 so she could make her own rules. With a headstrong and quirky personality, Lindsay approaches her work in a straightforward way, taking care to relay strong social messages with her art through humor and honesty. Her photography and writing clearly show her passion for social justice issues, particularly in the field of women's rights. Whether through subject-based projects or through self-portraiture, she weaves art, business, and audience interaction seamlessly while focusing on projects that specifically aim to break down barriers for women, celebrate their strengths, and create discussion. Lindsay, welcome to Dare to Transform.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm so happy to have you here. And you do have good lighting behind
Thank
you.
you. That's very important to me.
Yes.
I spent hours.
Lovely,
That's right.
lovely. So I gave a bit of an, intro of you, but for the audience sake, and I know what you do, but for the audience sake, can you tell us a bit of, a bit more about who you are and how you got started?
How much time do you have?
Just 7 hours.
Yeah. My career path is very convoluted, and that's a nice way to put it. I have no background. My educational background has nothing to do with art or business. I'm a university dropout. I'm a college graduate eventually. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting to where I am today, and it was not part of the original plan at all. My educational background is actually in geography, interactive multimedia, land use planning, and finally I went back to school for business and got some business certifications, but I have no art background whatsoever. I'm completely self-taught in that respect.
Nice.
Yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so that was always part of who I was, and I think at some level I always knew I'd go off on my own.
Okay.
I just didn't have the confidence or the resources to do it until I was a little bit older.
Okay. So do you think talk about that a little bit. Do you think growing up, did you know that you would be an entrepreneur? Did you want to be, do you think, or was it there?
I think it was there. It was definitely there inside me. I kind of suffered from growing up in a rural area where maybe the high school resources didn't point us always in the right directions. I ended up going to the university that my friends went to because that's just what everybody did at the time.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like nobody really took the time to help me figure out what my strengths are, even though in hindsight, which is 2020, my strengths have always clearly been in business. And I identify primarily as a business person and as an artist secondarily. Yeah.
No, I hear you. It's funny, when I look back on my path. So I went to university as well. That's what everybody did.
Yeah.
And I had intentions of being a doctor. As you know, I'm not a doctor.
I didn't know that.
So weird, I know. But yeah, so I had these aspirations, and I had always done well in math and sciences. And so, for me, I went off in the direction of sciences, and I loved certain parts of it. I did my science degree first, but it wasn't easy for me. It was always it was definitely not something that flowed for me. But again, I'd always done well in high school in, like I said, math and sciences. So it was I kind of felt like I'd been pushed, and not by my parents, but more so just by society, if you will, to go do that. And it wasn't until, until I found athletic therapy that I was like, oh, okay, this, I love this. And studying and learning about anatomy and physiology and injuries, I was like, ooh, I love that part of it. But the interesting thing, and then I went on, I'll save us all the details of my, 17-year corporate career.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, like, as I went along, I always kind of felt like, well, again, society, it's like, well, you have this thing that you're good at, so that's what you should be doing. When in reality, when I look back at it, I'm like, man, I wish I'd known that I could have done business courses when I was 18 or 20 or 30 or whatever. And I probably like maybe would have struggled less, but we're here where we are because of our journey, right? So
absolutely. And I mean, I picked up some pretty important stuff along the way and tools that have transferred very nicely into the business I'm in today. So I can't, I value my past very, very much. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So tell me, I read a little bit in your bio. I didn't know about this. Tell us how you got started as a photographer, like an official photographer.
Right. So I blame my friend Sasha 100% for this, and I'm going to make her listen to this because she knows this.
Awesome.
In 2005, she was getting married, and she, at the time, photography was a hobby for me, as it is for many people. And I had some pictures up in my apartment, and she saw a picture I think I had of a plant or a tree or a flower or something like that, something completely off topic. And a few weeks later, she's like, so I'm getting married, and I would really like you to shoot my wedding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Absolutely not. And she would not
I don't do that.
I don't do that. That's a picture of a flower. It's not the same thing. She wouldn't take no for an answer. And this is back in the film days. Let me remind you that digital was not a thing. So she said, if you don't do it, I'm putting disposable cameras on the tables, and that's all we're doing. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't live with myself knowing that you've just put disposable cameras on the tables. And so I was like, fine. She was in Alberta. I was in Nova Scotia. So I'm like, sure. So I flew out to Alberta, shot her wedding, and flew home. And I remember handing her a Ziploc bag full of film and going like this, here you go.
Oh my God.
Run the other way.
Crazy.
Yeah. And you know what, though? I loved it the whole time. It felt comfortable. It felt good. It was like I already knew exactly what to do. And so I credit her, but I also blame her for getting me into the shit show that became my photography career, because it's been bumpy. It's been very bumpy. It's up and down. It's an unregulated industry. It's a mess at times. And but I never looked back. I loved it. I knew it right from that. From that moment. Yeah.
So did you start off doing other weddings? Like, so obviously that gave you some confidence, and you were like, it felt like you already knew what to do, and that's what you were meant to do. But like, what happened next? Like, what did you do after that?
Yeah. So I never, believe it or not, I'm a little bit of a shy person when it comes to dealing with other people, especially strangers. So especially at this time, I'm 25 years old here, as a reminder, and I've worked in offices for a while at this point, and my little isolated little cubicle, and so I didn't have a lot of experience dealing with people on that level. And as you know, like what events are like, and I know you know what events are like, it's herding people. It's you have to be
it's like herding cats.
Yes, you have to be an event planner, and you have to be you have to keep smiling the whole time. You have to be friendly. You have to pretend everything's fine when everything's like
you have to pretend
fire.
That you're not trying to like lose your mind.
Right.
Like,
and then it's like, oh yeah. And I also have to take pictures too. Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a lot going on. And I'm, believe it or not, very introverted as well. I mean, this is exhausting for me.
Yeah.
But I never thought that I would be interested in taking pictures of people. I never thought that I would be in the business of dealing with people. And that's essentially what photography is. And you just happen to take pictures also. But customer service, dealing with people is really one of the number one things when you're in any business for yourself.
Right.
So what happened after that? So I think what happens is people start hearing, oh, there's someone who takes pictures. I need pictures. I'm going to call it. So of course I said yes to everything.
Yes.
And which was which is good. And in hindsight, it's a good thing, because I kind of started to narrow my focus a little more over the years by saying yes to everything in the beginning. And we're talking weddings, events, babies, I mean, you name it, business headshots, everything. I said yes to everything, which was exhausting. It was draining. I didn't make any money. I was undercharging. I was.
Why did you say yes, though? Why did you say yes? Like, was it because you were trying to build the business? Is that what it was? Or was there another reason?
Build a business. I'm a people pleaser. I wanted to try. I rarely say no to anything, Ange, because I am an adventurous person. If someone says, "Hey, let's go," there's a few things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to jump out of a plane. There's a few places I'm not going to go. But other than that, I say yes to everything. If I have an opportunity,
I'm like, I'm filing that away. I'm like,
don't use that against me.
Lindsay for everything.
Yeah, don't use that against me. But I say yes to almost everything because I want to try everything. I want to do everything. I want to go everywhere. I want to see everything. So I find by being a yes person, it helps me figure out what I don't want to do.
Yes.
That's always been my personality. True. Yeah. So I've tried, there's not many things I haven't tried or done. And I got them out of the way. You know what I mean? So
pause for a second. I'm curious. I'm a very curious person, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So when you're saying yes, do you have, like, is there fear there, or are you saying it, or are you saying yes despite the fear? Like, do you say yes first and then just worry about the fear later, or with the details?
Yeah.
I love that.
Unless it's something so far out of my wheelhouse, my range, my expertise that I literally cannot do. I cannot photograph a newborn, for example. I literally cannot do that. I do not have those skills. And I will happily refer that request to someone who's very good at that. I also want people to have the best that they can have. So if I feel like I can't perform what they're asking me to do, I'm happy to hand that off to somebody else. I have no interest in looking like a failure and falling flat on my face and disappointing a client. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't.
Well, and you're not going to feel good either.
No. And there's so many people out there who have the strengths that I don't have, that I'm happy to refer that person to someone else so they will be happy. Yeah. So that's also part of being a people pleaser, pointing them in the right direction so that they'll be happy with what they get. And that might not be from me, and that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, that I think that comes with experience too, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Trying to please them and trying to do something that, isn't necessarily your strength, and realizing that it's not good for you or them, and realizing that pointing them in another direction is
totally. And actually in part of that is that it is good for business.
Yes.
Because you develop the reputation of being that person who does want to help that person and wants them to have the best. So, and sometimes that does come back around. So that person will appreciate that, come back around and be like, now I need something that you offer. And I want to work with you because I like you and you were honest with me. And now I'm ready to buy what you're selling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
So, all right. So you're saying yes to everything. And then at what point though, did you go, hey, like, I want to do this full time. Like, I want to be a full-time photographer. I want to leave my steady day job, because you were in corporate for a long time. So what, do you remember the phase or the time when that happened for you?
So, yes. So long story short, I always wanted to be full-time. Once I started doing it, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't stupid enough to think that I'm going to drop everything right now and do this tomorrow. I'm smart enough to know that you just, that's not a smart decision to do. We weren't financially ready for it. I didn't have the experience under my belt to say I am going to be a full-time photographer. Pardon me. I was probably only a year or two in when I realized that I did want to do it full time. And I remember having these discussions with my husband. And this is also probably around the time I think our first son was born. We had just built a house. I was working full time. I had this side hustle. We had a lot going on. We had a lot of bills. We knew daycare was coming up. It wouldn't have made sense at that
Right.
time for me to leave a steady paycheck behind. But what we did is we had some serious discussions about it. How can we work towards this?
Yeah.
Because knowing this is what I wanted to do, and when I get my mind set on something, you're not going to change my mind. This is
Yeah.
what I want. This is what we're going to work towards. But I will slow down, even though I'm a 100 miles an hour type of person.
Yeah.
I am also a very smart person. So I'm like, let's take this slow. Let's start
Yeah.
putting some steps in place for eventually, when the time is right,
Yeah.
for me to do this. So
Yeah.
we started looking at, we had just built a house. We're like, okay, you know what? Let's sell this house.
Mhm.
We sold it. We lived in it
Yeah.
for a year. We sold it. We built another one. We
Yeah.
sold that. We bought another house. We renovated that. We sold that.
Okay.
Now we're
Okay.
in this house. So we
Yeah.
were working towards our bills.
Yeah.
In the meantime, kid number 2 comes along, and I can tell
Yeah.
you the exact moment that, see, I would have been happy doing both, the full-time
Okay.
job and the side hustle. I would have made that work because I am a
Okay.
workaholic. I work a ton of hours. I live for that.
Me too. Hi.
I live and breathe my
Working
work.
on it. Yeah.
Right? I don't need a ton of sleep. I'm healthy. I can do it. And I remember, this is personal. Do you want a personal story?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
course I do.
in between having my 2 boys, and our kids are the exact same age, aren't they?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Basically,
Mine are
yeah.
8 and 11.
Mine are 8 and 11 also.
Right. Okay.
So in between those 2, I had a miscarriage.
Me too.
And okay, so this is good.
Parallel lives. Yes.
Right. So I had a miscarriage on Easter Monday of, I can't remember what year it was. We were already 3 months along. We told everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. I went into work the next day. Well, I had obviously call in sick, told my boss what was happening. And she was like, okay, just do what you need to do. And then, keep us posted. So I had to have a procedure to have things looked after. I missed 2 weeks of work. Okay. I was back right away. I didn't miss any more time than I had to. The day I got back to work, I got called into my boss's office and I got written up for absenteeism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. By my female boss.
Wow.
Yeah, because I missed 2 weeks of work, 10 days of work, which I actually had enough sick time to cover it. There was no issue there. But the policy at the time was if you miss more than X amount of days in a row, you get a little note on your file. So I got written up, and I sat there across the table from her. I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to say. I had, when you like are in that situation, and then afterwards you think of all the things you should have said.
Yeah.
That was it. But I was just frozen. I just looked at her. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening.
That is that is quite unbelievable, to be honest.
It is quite unbelievable. But it's true, and it did happen.
But that's our reality.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and this, I mean, to put it in perspective, this was about 10 years ago. So not that long ago. Yeah. And this is a government job. I mean, we're unionized, So anyway, that was the moment. That was, if I had to pinpoint a moment where I said, I'm not doing this anymore, that was it. So I remember coming home and going, I can't work here anymore. I can't work for this person anymore. I can't work like this anymore. I'm done.
And you know what? Unfortunately, for some of us, especially, the workaholics, the like really stubborn, like I won't point the finger at you, I'll point the finger at me. But, but I think for some of us, like, that's what it takes for us to like finally wake up and be like, you know what, like, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, or this is unacceptable, or this is, and, especially we're going to talk more about like, the female side of things. But especially as a woman, especially in corporate, like some of these things that have happened and continue to happen are not acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the moment. That was, if I had to pinpoint, like I said, a moment, that was it. And I said, okay, now let's move things into high gear. Now let's really talk about this. And we did, and we both agreed that was the right thing to do. That was the sign we needed. If we needed a sign, let's get me out of there, and let's do something where I can make my own rules. And I mean, never looked back.
I love that. I was laughing when I read your bio. Because I'm like, essentially, like, with the exception of the photography part, a lot of it could be my bio, right?
Right.
I'm like, Oh, yeah. I'm like, that's exactly why I do what I
Yeah.
do. Is like, I make my own rules, right? Like,
Yes.
I still follow
Yes.
the rules, but
Yeah.
make my own rules, and things, kind of play out as I, want them to. And I
Hmm.
think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's the nugget, right? That's the
Absolutely.
carrot, and why we do it. So
Absolutely.
it's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to talk a little bit about we'll call it your self-portraiture.
Yep.
Sometimes I refer to it as your creepy photos
Yeah.
because I am easily like traumatized. Like, I'm that person that when the scary commercial comes on
Yeah.
TV or at the movies, like, I'm actually pretty pissed. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Why are they showing that right now? Like,
How
I'm not
dare
gonna
you?
sleep.
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
heck?
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
but I will say, as much as like some of the things that you've shared are creepy, or dark, or whatever word you want to use, like,
Yeah.
they're amazing. Like,
Thank
Lindsay,
you.
like, where, like, I love it. Like, I'm always like trying to figure out what's next. And I think because you have such a broad, a broad range of things that you work on, like
Yeah.
you said, you do branding, you do headshots, you do, family stuff, but then you'll have this side, I think, where you're
Yeah.
expressing yourself and where you're at. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that. I'll stop talking.
Okay. That's okay.
So tell me about that. Like, tell me where your inspiration comes from, and
Okay.
I want to know.
All right. So there's not an easy answer to that question. Inspiration comes from all over the place. For me, I'm a huge reader. I get a lot of ideas from the things I read, and as I read, pictures form in my mind of
Okay.
what I'm reading. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch movies. We haven't had cable for years. We have Netflix, so
Yeah.
I'll watch a few things here and there, but it's mostly just The Bachelor and reruns of Friends.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of I absorb it. I don't know how to say this. I have a good memory. I have a bit of a photographic memory. So if I see something, especially with words or numbers, images, I memorize them. So when I see color combinations that I like, or textures or patterns that I like outside, they just kind of stick in here. And then
Nice.
eventually I kind of put them all together, and I'll create something in my mind. That's a simple answer. The deeper answer is that I like to try different things. The way I learn is by doing things, and
Right.
I don't learn well. Getting back to that education piece, I'm a terrible student. I don't learn well by people talking at me. I don't learn well by watching videos, listening. I learn by doing. And
Okay.
so when maybe there's a new camera technique I want to try, maybe it's something like, maybe I just have a new outfit I want to see. I will set up my camera, and I will use myself as a model, and I will photograph myself. I will sit there patiently for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
No way.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'll sit there and I'll try, this position, this position, this position, this position, inch by inch.
Okay, this is where I fail.
Okay.
So we're gonna have a session after the podcast, because
Yeah.
I'm always like, ooh, that photo did not turn out how I wanted it all. But then I'm on to the next thing.
Right. So this is
Yeah.
the one thing in my life that I have patience with, and it's myself. And this is why I love working alone. I've always wanted and preferred to work alone, when I can do things in the privacy of my own home without anyone looking at me, fake judging me. And I say that because no one's actually judging you, but there's that perception of being judged. Right. I don't want the pressure of someone waiting for me. So I will sit there. One of those pictures that you see on Instagram probably took me all day, because I'm sitting there and I'm lifting 1 finger, 2 fingers, 4 fingers.
So amazing.
I am not kidding. But see, this is also how I learn. So I will analyze my own photos. I could never have someone sit there for me for that long. I could never do that to somebody. So I use myself.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a double-edged sword. So I'm using myself as a learning tool, because I'll analyze them. I'll analyze, the position of my hair, and I'll analyze the wrinkles in my clothing, and I'll learn, and it'll stick in my head what works and what doesn't work, and I can transfer that to my client work.
Yeah.
And then as a bonus, I get something content-wise to post on my Instagram. I get to play with
or 37,000 photos of that one
right,
session.
Right. And honestly,
yeah,
that's probably an understatement. 37,000. I mean, I have anyway to get one picture. So and then I'll also play around with things like post-processing, different locations, stuff that I'm too either embarrassed or impatient to try on an actual person. I try them on myself. So then it gives me the confidence to go out in the field with someone, because I don't work with real models. I work with regular people who need to be directed. And so I use myself as that learning tool. So if I can learn how to move myself and pose myself and do my own hair and makeup and how my clothes are supposed to fit and what shoes go with what, then I can go to my client and be like, I already know this works. Let's go do that. Okay. And that's what they're hiring me for.
And you're directing them. Yeah. So you're directing them, and you can tell them, okay, lift this finger, don't do that, etc. Exactly. That's amazing. Exactly. And so what has the feedback been, on some of the self-portraits? You've done a lot of fitness stuff too, that I, really appreciate. So what's the feedback been like? The
feedback is, let's be honest, no one's ever going to say anything negative to your face. And this is one thing I keep telling.
Wait a minute. Are we not supposed to do that? Because I don't have that.
Not to an artist, Ange. Not to an artist.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right?
That's fair. Yeah.
No one, and this comes with experience too, is learning not to be afraid, because no one is ever going to come up to you and go, I really didn't like your lighting in that self-portrait, or like your hair, you should have done this. No one's going to say that to you. Fair. So once you get past that, it gives you this freedom to do what you want to do and try things that you wouldn't normally try without fear of judgment from other people. So once I got past knowing that no one's ever, they're going to think it. Obviously, they're going to think that Lindsay's a idiot. Like, what the hell is that? But they're never going to say it to my face, so I don't hear it. So they're allowed to think whatever they want. They can say whatever they want behind my back, but if I don't hear it, then it didn't happen. Right.
Well, and here's the thing. So here's the funny thing. So, you're talking about your photography, but that same concept, that same premise can apply for everything. Yeah. Because I know, for myself, I'm sure there's lots of things that I do and things that I put out there that other people are thinking like, what the hell? Like, why would she think that's a good idea? Or why would, but I think you get to a certain point, and I'm not saying it doesn't need to be a certain age, because some, I've seen it where some people seem to they just seem to have that. Like they, they come out of, I've had high school girls that I've coached, and people, where they just have that confidence, and they really don't care. Where I shouldn't say they don't care. It doesn't matter to them what other people are saying or thinking. They're going to do the thing anyways because they feel called to do it. So
it's an amazing feeling. And I love seeing that in young people, because it's typically something that comes with age. Yes. But not, like you said, not always. And it's an amazing quality to see in a young person. And that's the one thing I tell, because I do a little bit of mentoring, and I like to have what I call an open inbox policy. And I let people ask me questions, people, especially who are new to the business. They know that they can come to me at any time, and I will help them without fear of judgment on my part. I always let them know that, that my inbox and my door, not my door, don't come knocking on my door, but my
that'd be awkward, because you're doing the 37,000 photos session.
Right.
So,
yes. Door is locked. You're not coming in. But I always say, to try to get over the fear of judgment, particularly on social media, where it is so personal, especially if you're putting out pictures of yourself. It's very, very hard to do. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And nobody is going to say anything horrible to your face, or they're not going to do it. They're only going to say, you either get nice things or you get no things.
Right.
So that's how you can judge how
Right.
it goes over, right?
Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
people are like, oh my God, it's so great. Or it's like silence. And you're like, oh shit, oops,
Went
missed the
too far
mark
that
on that
time.
one.
Yeah.
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 And I
That's
mean,
awesome.
and let me be very clear that I missed the mark over and over and over again. And that's okay. That's how
Yeah.
I learn. And honestly, at self-portraiture, if I don't have, if it's not client work and I don't have someone depending on me to put out something great, there's no loss to me. There's no loss. There's only learning. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Well, and
Yeah.
you're probably having fun with it too, right?
I'm having a
Like,
lot of fun with it. Yeah.
that's
And then
awesome.
people are starting to send me challenges.
I think I sent you one. I have no idea what I said.
What did you do?
What was it
did you
that
say?
day?
It wasn't the garbage bag one. Someone sent me the garbage bag
Hmm.
challenge, which I did.
Yeah.
But people are like, I bet you can't do this. I bet you can't do that. And I'm like, well, that's the best way to get
Watch
me to
me.
do something.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I work too. I'm like, oh, okay, you're gonna tell me that I can't do it? Well, I'm gonna show you how. So watch me.
Watch me.
Watch
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about, I would say for sure one of my favorite projects that you've done. That I started my career because of sports, and rugby definitely, and all my, injuries have, shaped who I am as a person, who I am as a business person. And, as a rugby coach for a long time, blah, 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 enough about me. Let's talk about your Women in Sports project.
Okay.
And so tell me about it.
Okay. So as you know, my passion projects, as we call them, this is the things we do on the side.
Yes.
Mine typically revolve around social justice issues, and they typically stem from me being pissed off about something and wanting to make a change. So last year when I started hearing the stats about women being invisible in the media, in the sports world, I was floored. I was shocked at that the stats were so low. And B, I was like, well, that's terrible of the media. How dare they, ignore us? Because my understanding is that participation rates between the genders in sports are fairly equal. The opportunities are there. Girls are signing up for sports. They're playing sports. Why are we invisible? We're not being shown on TV. We're not being reported about in the papers. We're not being highlighted in magazines, So I remember thinking, well, in a way, I kind of am the media. So I can change this. And because I have a platform, because I take pictures, and because I have a background in sports, I thought, who better to do this than me? And of course, being involved in sports for my whole life, a lot of people in my networks, like my close friends, are great athletes. And I was like, I wonder if they would pose for a picture for me. I wonder if they'd let me talk to them about this. Because I know they're doing awesome things. I think more people should know about these women. And so I put like a little thing out there on Facebook, and the response was pretty big, more than I anticipated. What I originally was going to do is maybe find 5 or 10 women and who had accomplished some great things in sport, either past, present, or on their way to, and highlight them as a photo essay, just an online photo essay. So, but when I woke up the next morning, Ange, my inbox like blew up. And then I was like, oh shit. Like I kind of pride myself on seeing opportunities when they arise. And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. These women are super passionate. They're angry. They are literally like, please come talk to me and photograph me. I have something to say and I want people to see me. So I took that really seriously. And I was like, okay, I think there's something bigger going on here. So I was like, okay, slow down. Let's put a little bit more thought into this. And I started responding to the emails. It took me forever to respond to the emails, but I responded to every single one. And they all, they started just sort of lining up like how they were supposed to, I think. And
Right.
and I started photographing them. I started talking to them, and I'm like, okay, we need to put the stories next to the pictures, because
Right.
these stories are spectacular. Like,
Yeah.
when you get to be an adult, and to be just to clarify, I'm only focusing on adult women in sport,
Right.
because when you're past the age of your parents signing you up for things, you're doing this. Are we good? We're
Yeah.
doing you're when you're an adult and you're still involved in sport, you're doing it voluntarily. No one's making you do it.
Yeah.
Often, most of the time, you're paying out of your own pocket. You're dealing with your body doesn't respond as well as it used to as you're an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah.
Things hurt, and physically it hurts. And so I was curious. I started to get curious why women are still doing sports well into their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And the other day I photographed a woman who's 80 years old. I'm really excited to share that story with everybody.
Awesome.
But I wanted to know why they keep doing it. They're not getting recognition. They're not winning awards. They're not winning prizes. There's no prize money typically for women in most sports. So I wanted to know why they kept showing up, why they kept doing it. This has been going on for almost a year. We're almost a year into the project. My goal was to photograph and interview 50 women. Started just in my own neighborhood. It's expanded now to, I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 provinces represented now. So we're focusing nationwide now. It's Canadian women in sport, and it's not just athletes. It's coaches, it's officials, it's volunteers, it's amateurs, it's professionals, it's all ages, it's all sizes, it's everything. And the goal is to show these women as role models for younger girls, because they don't exist. Role models for young girls in the sports world barely exist. I shouldn't say they don't exist. They exist.
They exist, but they're not being highlighted. They're not being put out there in the media. And I think, this is exactly the type of thing that we need right now. And it's exactly the type of thing that will keep moving women in sports like ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I think it all, so is it easy? No. But at the same time, like, it's so necessary. And I see too, like, that, there's lots of girls in sports right now, but as they get older, to your point, what happens? Like, they start to drop out. And, and I think people, I've been watching a lot of stuff in the US too about, like, Abby Wambach has been a huge advocate for equality in sports. And, I just think, like, it has to start somewhere. So kudos to you.
Thank you
For doing this project. How do people, you're welcome. How do people find out more about the project?
The project,
we'll probably drop links to it. I'm going to say, but
Okay. So I keep an ongoing album on my Facebook page, my Lyndsay Doyle Photography Facebook page. There's a little bit on Instagram, but mostly it's focused on Facebook, because I find the audience on Facebook a little more inclined to read the bios that are longer than, for example, Instagram allows. So mostly it's been on Facebook, and then with the hopes of turning it into a proper book down the road. So we're working on the logistics around that one right now.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, we do need to wrap up here shortly, but I want to ask you, so, what piece of advice would you give to someone? Both of us on our journeys have started off with, something that we're passionate about, something we love to do. We found our purpose along the way. And then both of us have, then formed businesses that serve us. And as you said earlier, allow us to make our own rules. But, what piece of advice would you give for someone who wants to go from passion to purpose?
Right. So my advice is always to slow down a little bit. I find people like you and I, for example, our personalities are in overdrive. Our brains go 100 miles an hour.
How did you know?
Yeah, right. You want to do everything yesterday, right?
Right. And be an expert at it.
And be an expert at it. And it's so easy to beat yourself up over it when things don't go the way you envision them to. You need to slow down. We all need to slow down. You don't always need to have a proper plan in place. I'm not a planner. I don't work. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. But I do have a a weekly plan. I do have a monthly plan. I try to follow it a little bit because it's so easy to get ahead of yourself, set unrealistic goals, which we tend to do, and then be disappointed when you don't reach your goals. We are our own worst enemies. We beat ourselves up terribly. So I say set small goals, little goals, daily goals, and then kill them. And then have your big goals, have your long-term goals,
have your vision, right? Like
I'm
the same way. Like everyone works differently. So for some people, they need that, 3-month plan, whatever it looks like. But I do think like the key to all of it is having vision and figuring out how to work towards it in a way that works best for you. So,
and be patient. Things take time. It takes years. And I find people give up. They do give up too quickly. And it takes forever to build your business. It takes forever. I'm 14 years in. I'm still building. I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel like I'm just starting to hit my stride. And if I had quit, I mean, I feel like quitting, I say for real, once every 2 years or so. I feel like I'm done. I can't take it anymore. But then you learn to just rest, right? And not quit. And you just keep going. You just keep going. And things take time. And we're not patient by nature, but you have to be patient in business.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us today and sharing your story. I'm Angela Harris, and this has been episode number 4 of Dare to Transform, a Missing Link Technologies podcast in collaboration with Work of Heart. Have an amazing day. We hope you dare to transform.